Nobody outside that room was supposed to know this. In the spring of 2023, on a quiet residential street in North Dighton, Massachusetts, a 21-year-old Air National Guardsman sat behind a keyboard, holding in his hands something no young enlisted airman was ever meant to hold. Not a weapon, not a badge of command, something more dangerous: access. Jack Teixeira wasn't a general. He wasn't a senator or a spy master or a battlefield commander. He was a junior enlisted specialist, an IT technician assigned to the 102nd Intelligence Wing at Otis Air National Guard Base. On paper, his job was mundane: maintaining networks, keeping systems running, sitting quietly at the edges of America's intelligence machine. But sometimes the edges see more than the center ever does. This is the moment the story starts to unravel. Because somewhere between his late shifts and his private life, Jack Teixeira found himself part of a small online community. A Discord server, a handful of mostly teenage boys and young men from across the country, bound together not by ideology, not by politics, but by something simpler: guns, games, memes, and a shared appetite for dark humor. They called it Thug Shaker Central. To the outside world, it looked like nothing. Just another obscure corner of the internet, invisible, unindexed, the kind of place algorithms don't find and journalists don't read. But inside that server, Jack wasn't just another member. He was, in their eyes, someone important, someone who worked in intelligence, someone who had access to things they didn't. And somewhere along the way, he began to share that access. Not for money, not for a foreign government, according to what investigators would later piece together. He wanted something almost painfully human: respect, attention, to matter to a small group of online strangers who looked up to him. Here's the part they left out of the official report. The documents didn't leak all at once in one dramatic dump. They trickled out slowly, over months, according to federal investigators. Photographs of paper documents laid out on a countertop, some reportedly on top of a gun cleaning mat, folded into quarters to fit into a pocket, smuggled home from a secure facility, then photographed and posted for an audience of a few dozen people who had no idea what they were looking at or what it would cost. Battlefield assessments from Ukraine, troop movement estimates, signals intelligence, assessments of foreign governments, allies and adversaries both, laid bare in granular classified detail. Documents marked top secret, some containing intelligence so sensitive that only a small circle of officials were ever meant to see them. And for a while they simply sat there, inside a private Discord server, visible to a small circle of strangers who treated national secrets the way other people trade sports statistics. What you're about to hear never made it to the evening news. Not at first, not in the earliest days, because for months, nobody outside that small server knew. The Pentagon didn't know. The intelligence community didn't know. Allied nations who had shared sensitive assessments with the United States under the assumption of absolute confidentiality had no idea their secrets were circulating among strangers on the internet. It wasn't a hostile intelligence service that cracked the vault. It wasn't a sophisticated cyber attack. It was a 21-year-old with a security clearance and an audience he wanted to impress. Somewhere in Washington, someone made a call they'd regret, because by the time officials began piecing together what had happened, some of those documents had already drifted far beyond the original server. Screenshots were copied, reposted, passed from one online community to another, stripped of context, sometimes altered, sometimes mistranslated, until fragments of America's most closely guarded assessments were circulating on platforms the intelligence community had never intended, in front of audiences no security clearance was ever supposed to reach. Foreign governments began noticing. Journalists began asking questions. And somewhere inside the Pentagon, alarm bells that should have rung months earlier finally started sounding. Ask yourself, who benefits from you not knowing this? Because the uncomfortable truth investigators eventually had to confront wasn't just about one troubled young airman. It was about a system. How does a junior enlisted technician, filling a support role, end up with routine access to some of the nation's most sensitive intelligence products? How does a security clearance process, built on background checks and psychological evaluations and layers of institutional trust, fail to catch a young man who had reportedly made concerning remarks in the past? Remarks serious enough that they were flagged, yet not serious enough apparently to strip his access? The paperwork was clean. The truth wasn't. On April 6, 2023, the New York Times and other outlets began reporting on a cache of leaked Pentagon documents circulating online. Documents that appeared to reveal details about the war in Ukraine, and far more besides. Within days, federal investigators, the FBI, working with the Department of Justice, began a race against time, working backward from the leaked images themselves, examining folds in the paper, backgrounds in the photographs, the angle of the light. It was, in some ways, a strangely old-fashioned kind of detective work. hunting a digital age leak through analog clues. And the trail led to Massachusetts, to a modest home, to a young man who, by all accounts, had no idea the walls were closing in until the moment they did. This wasn't supposed to leave that building. On April 13th, 2023, just 1 week after the documents became public knowledge, heavily armed FBI agents moved in on the house in North Dighton. Television cameras captured the moment. A young man in gym shorts and a t-shirt, hands raised, walking backward toward armed agents in tactical gear, surrounded on a quiet suburban street that had probably never seen anything like it before. It was an image that seemed almost absurd in its contrast. The ordinary domestic backdrop, a garage, a lawn, and at the center of it, a federal takedown for what officials would call one of the most significant unauthorized disclosures of classified information in recent American history. He said almost nothing. There was, by most accounts, no dramatic standoff, no chase, no defiance. Just a quiet arrest, and the beginning of a legal reckoning that would take more than a year to unfold. History remembers the outcome. It forgot how close it came to going the other way, because in the months before his arrest, those documents kept circulating. Nobody knows, even now, exactly how far they traveled, how many eyes saw them, how many foreign intelligence services quietly downloaded and archived material that American officials spent years compiling. Some of what leaked reportedly touched on the war in Ukraine at a moment when trust between the United States and its allies was already fragile, when accurate, protected intelligence sharing was central to the war effort itself. Every leaked page was a small crack in that foundation of trust, and trust once cracked doesn't simply reset itself. In the aftermath, questions multiplied faster than answers. How many other young enlisted service members in bases across the country have similar access with similarly thin oversight? How many private servers, forums, and group chats are quietly hosting fragments of classified material right now, invisible to the agencies meant to protect it? The Pentagon opened reviews into how clearances are granted and monitored. Members of Congress demanded hearings, and still, underneath all of it, sat a strange, almost unsettling truth: that the greatest threat to American secrets in this case wasn't a hostile nation with billions of dollars and years of tradecraft. It was loneliness. It was a young man wanting to feel important to people online who barely knew his last name. The record was sealed for a reason. Jack Teixeira would eventually plead guilty in March 2024 to 6 counts under the Espionage Act, avoiding a trial that would have forced prosecutors and defense attorneys alike to litigate in open court exactly how much damage had truly been done. A number the government has never fully disclosed to the public and may never disclose at all. He was sentenced later that year to 15 years in federal prison. 15 years for a 21-year-old who investigators say never intended to help a foreign adversary, never sought payment, never saw himself as a spy. He saw himself, by most accounts, as someone worth listening to. And maybe that's the part of this story that lingers longest. Not the classified maps, not the troop assessments, not the diplomatic fallout, but the reminder that some of the most serious threats to national security don't come from shadowy foreign operatives in the dark. Sometimes they come from inside our own institutions, from someone young, overlooked, and desperate to matter, holding access that should have never been his to give away. Somewhere tonight, in a base or an office or a secure facility somewhere in America, another young analyst is logging into a system, scrolling through files far above their pay grade, trusted simply because a form was signed and a background check came back clean. The question this story leaves behind isn't really about Jack Teixeira at all. It's about how many more of him are already sitting in that room.